يا راغبا في كل علم نافع.
ينمو العلم ويتقدم بتقنياته ومجالاته، ومعه نطور أدواتنا في تقديم العلم الشرعي. أكاديمية
زاد أكاديمية ينبوعها صاف ليروي غلة الظمآن. وتعلم الفقه الميسر عاملا بالشرع دون تعصب لفلان. بشرى لنا زاد أكاديمية للعلم كالأزهار في البستان.
بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وآله وصحبه ومن اهتدى بهداه. Today we are going to talk about the pillars of prayer. So what is the difference between prayers and difference between pillars and conditions and the likes? Well, pillars are the essential parts of the prayer. If you drop a pillar out of forgetfulness, out of ignorance, or deliberately, your prayer is invalid unless you retract that in the prayer. So any pillar that you forget and then remember half an hour later, you have to go and pray all over again. You cannot make it up because the gap is too long and you've dropped a pillar. If you drop the pillar of a building, it's going to fall. While conditions are things required before the prayer is due, like facing the Qibla, for example. So someone prayed to the wrong direction. His prayer is invalid because the condition was not fulfilled. He prayed without wudu. His prayer is invalid. And he cannot rectify this now because you have to do it all over. This was before the actual prayer. Pillars are in the prayer itself. If we list them down, you'll have a clear, inshallah, understanding of it. So number one, the first pillar is standing up while being able. And this is a very important clause. Standing up while being able in the faridah. Because if you're unable, you can't pray sitting down. If it's not faridah, you can pray sitting down if you're a traveler or a resident, but your reward would be half if it's a voluntary prayer. You won't be rewarded fully. The evidence is Allah stating subhanahu wa ta'ala, and stand before Allah devoutly obedient. So you have to stand in fard. And in the hadith of Imran ibn Husayn, may Allah be pleased with him, the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, pray standing up. If you can't, pray sitting down. If you can't, pray lying on your side. So depending on your situation and your ability. And if you can stand up, but you can't bow or prostrate, you must stand up as a pillar. And you're exempted from bowing and prostrating, except if you're able to do so. As for the voluntary prayers, no. If you pray sitting down while being able to stand up, your prayer is valid. It's voluntary. But your reward would be considered half, because the Prophet says, alayhi a man's prayer while sitting is equal to half a prayer. So he would not get the full prayer. The second pillar, the opening takbir or takbiratul ihram, the inaugurational takbir. How and when this is done? This is done only once in the prayer and at the very beginning. And nothing suffices except saying Allahu Akbar. If you don't say it, your prayer is invalid. The Prophet said while teaching someone who cannot pray properly, whenever you stand up for prayer, give takbir. And also the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, its beginning is takbir and its end is taslim, and he's referring to the prayer. So this is a condition, and a lot of the people miss this condition when they come hasting to prayer when the imam is in the ruku', and they go to ruku' and they say Allahu Akbar while in the ruku' position. Their prayer is invalid because they did not offer the takbir while in the standing position, and they skipped it and offered the takbir of movement. And this is essential for Muslims to learn properly. The third pillar is to recite the Fatiha in each and every rak'ah. And it has to be recited correctly and in the same order. The only exemption is, or exception, if a person comes late to prayer and the imam is in the ruku'. Or you give takbir while with the imam, and just before you start the Fatiha or being able to complete it, the imam goes for ruku'. Only in this case, you're exempted from reciting the Fatiha and you make ruku'. Now this is according to the madhab. What about what about the ruling or the obligation of reciting the Fatiha? Well, reciting the Fatiha is a pillar in each and every rak'ah. A pillar. Your prayer is invalid if you're an imam or if you're praying alone. And there is no difference of opinion among scholars. They all agree, of all schools of thought. Imam and a person praying individually, alone, every single rak'ah he has to pray, offer and recite the Fatiha. If he doesn't, the prayer is invalid. The difference of opinion lies on the follower in a congregational prayer, who is not an imam, someone who's following and praying behind the imam. They have different opinions. So some say whether the prayer is loud or silent, the rak'ah is loud or silent, it is a pillar for both the imam and the follower. The imam, of course, we have no dispute in that. Other schools of thought say, no, when you're a follower, you don't recite the Fatiha at all, whether it's loud or silent. No Fatiha for you. The imam's Fatiha is sufficient. And in between, there comes an opinion that is highly respected, and I'm inclined to say that this is the most authentic opinion. When the prayer is silent, when the rak'ah is silent, as in Dhuhr, Asr, or the last two rak'ahs of Isha and the last rak'ah of Maghrib, this is a silent rak'ah. It is a pillar for both the imam and for the follower. If the follower does not recite the Fatiha, his prayer is invalid. But when the prayer is loud, as in Fajr, or the two first rak'ahs of Maghrib and the two first rak'ahs of Isha, it is a pillar upon the imam without any doubt, but the follower, it's not a pillar for him and it's optional. If he recites it, that's good. But if he doesn't, that's also sufficient because the recitation of the imam was sufficient for him. And this is the most authentic opinion after looking into very long extended evidences to combine them all. But as for the text, as for your book, as for your exams, this is what you have to understand, that according to the madhab, to the school of thought, then the recitation of the Fatiha is a pillar for the individual, for the imam, and for the follower in each and every rak'ah. And this is the safest opinion. But as I stated earlier, it's not the most authentic, it's the safest opinion, and that is what's in your textbook, and Allah knows best. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد.
يا راغبا في كل علم نافع.
ينمو العلم ويتقدم بتقنياته ومجالاته، ومعه نطور أدواتنا في تقديم العلم الشرعي. أكاديمية
زاد أكاديمية ينبوعها صاف ليروي غلة الظمآن. وتعلم الفقه الميسر عاملا بالشرع دون تعصب لفلان. بشرى لنا زاد أكاديمية للعلم كالأزهار في البستان.